I'm Julia.
And I'm Natalie. And we're back again, ready to break your next conspiracy theory.
Let's break it.
Boop.
Two very controversial subjects have been brought up, leaving us with no choice but to break it.
So here you go. Let's take a deeper look into our government and whether it played a role in the Apollo 11 moon landing and 9/11. So here we go. The moon landing. Do you think it was real or not? We won't ever know. Let's take it back to 1969. Ah, the good old days. America, still wanting to be up on top, took matters into their own hands and made history by being the first to officially step foot and leave their mark on the moon. But I mean, there are many things that just don't make sense. First of all, it was 1969 and technology was still developing and videography was poor. Lucky for the conspiracists, we've been able to pursue these many faults of the televised moon landing, which may have been developed just for bragging rights and for entertainment for the public. Well, here are some of the major points of evidence to lead people to believe it was fake. So primarily, there were those who believed that this was a conspiracy theory, think that the moon landing was actually on a Hollywood set. If you look closely at the images, there's also a studio light reflected in the mask of one of the astronauts.
Another thing about the setting would be what is known famously as a sea rock. Honestly, this is just mind-boggling to me, that if the government had any part in faking the reality of the moon landing, that they would check and then recheck to make sure everything was perfect to be streamed to the world. But hey, that's just me. There is really no way to excuse the fact that there is a perfectly carved letter into a rock unless you believe in aliens, but for us, we leave it as a stage prop that should have been flipped over.
Now you're probably thinking about how in the world a Hollywood set would be able to show the anti-gravity of space that we all desperately want to feel. Ha, easy. Wires and, sorry, but there's evidence of that too. Hollywood and the government, if this is all a master plan to trick the public that we actually made it to the moon, why didn't you just wait a couple years until you knew technology wouldn't rat you out?
Okay, if we haven't convinced you enough or made you question your whole existence, well, please explain to me how in literally every picture there is not one star. And they're in space. Yeah, you're right. Maybe it was just a little overcast that day on the moon. Please make yourselves known, producers. Please. Might I add that there is no wind in space, but still the flag is waving. Yeah, because that just makes sense.
So we all know basic science, right? Or the art of making shadow puppets, but I guess whoever made the moon landing video didn't, because there are shadows all over the place, which actually is impossible when you're in a black void of space, and there is actually only one source of light, the sun. So,
Finally, to conclude, the moon is a dusty ball of whiteness with rock and such. And let's take a giant spaceship and land it on this chalky substance, but literally, there was no mark, like nothing, and science has proved to us that should have made a crater, literally a crater.
well, if that wasn't enough for you, there has been another thing that may or may not have been a conspiracy with the government, the attack of 9/11. So prior to the attack, many people believed that the traders of the stock market knew about what was going to happen because there were fluctuations of the American Airlines stocks. This was the airline company that was hijacked.
There is also speculation that the stock traders profited from the attack, and in investigation, there was some evidence by the Securities and Exchange Commission found that one of the suspects could have been Osama bin Laden at some random Wall Street firm.
Another interesting piece was that the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, was preparing to send out fighter jets to shoot down the planes, but the defense systems told them to stand down. Like, why, America? Why was there two planes and neither was shot down? Why?
People say that there was a controlled collapse in explosives that are what made the towers fall, not the planes. With the Pentagon, people questioned the demolition and believed that the whole impact is too small to have come from a commercial airline.
There is evidence of the passports of the hijackers, and some people have seen people in other countries still alive. How are the terrorists possibly still alive when the towers fell when nearly 3,000 people died, and their passports are still fine? Like, no, it's impossible. They are paper. Paper.
Flight 93 seems to also be part of the conspiracy. The cell phone calls from husbands to wives and vice versa, thought to be faked because at the altitude that the planes are flying, it is also impossible for there to be reception. Also, a specific example is of a man calls to his son where he refers to himself by his first and last name. Why would the kid need the clarification of his dad's name after saying, "Hi, this is Dad"?
Also under investigation, Osama bin Laden denied that he was part of 9/11, which is understandable, but shortly after that was released, there were tapes that said he took full responsibility, so that's pretty fishy, folks. Pretty fishy. Many skeptics believe that this had to do with President Bush's ventures in the Middle East and bin Laden's involvement with the stock market, and to cover both of these up. Please subscribe to our channel and add comments below for our next conspiracy.